Welcome everybody into your Melbourne Aces season preview podcast. I'm Steve Goldberg, joined along with Eric Ose. As we recap this past weekend's opening series, it was an exhibition series against the Victorian All-Stars, in which the Melbourne Aces, they won both games. They won the first one by a score of 8-1, and the second one by a score of 9-0. Pitching was great. We had some offensive highlights as well. Eric, why don't you go over and recap the series for us?
Well, I'd say in Game 1, the big standout offensively was Mike Hill. He went 4 for 4, a couple of doubles. That's got to be refreshing to see for a guy like Joe Vavra. Hill, you got to imagine, is a guy that they're going to have a lot of hopes pinned on because he is one of the minor league affiliates that has come over. He's in a new position, so to speak, even though he's really played all over in his time in affiliated ball. But he looked really well, not just in Game 1, but in Game 2 as well. And then on the pitching side of things, maybe don't take a whole lot away from a guy like Matt Larkins carving up an all-star lineup in baseball Victoria, but you got to take away the fact that everyone had control. There were not a whole lot of walks around the plate, and it didn't lead to a lot of free base runners, and so that's got to be a lot of confidence for Vavra as well. Relatively cleanly played baseball games as well for the Aces. The offense, as you mentioned, was there. We're going to see, I think Masato was a lot of fun to watch in the outfield. We'll see exactly where his role is. I don't know as a leadoff guy, but there's a lot of moving parts going on. It's only 2 games, but it has got to give you a lot of confidence heading into this series come Friday.
And of course, you mentioned Matt Larkins, an independent baseball league player, and he came over here. He pitched 4 strong innings, didn't allow a hit, 4 innings of shutout ball, and he had 5 strikeouts as well. He will be in the starting rotation along with John Kennedy, the first exhibition game starter. Kennedy pitched well. We saw some great arms out of the bullpen as well. Matt Wilson and Mike McGilvery. So a couple of excellent guys to look forward to this year. And offensively, you mentioned Hill. We also had the late arrival of Keith Curcio. He had just gotten off the plane, maybe a little bit jet-lagged, but he got a base hit in his first aces at bat as well. The Braves prospect.
Curcio was an interesting story because he was a bit jet-lagged, as you mentioned. It was kind of funny because in the bottom of the 9th inning, when you're up 9-0, you usually don't play the bottom of the 9th, but because this was an exhibition game, Joe Vavra wanted him to get an extra at-bat. Didn't turn out to be an at-bat. It turned out to just be Curcio being hit by a pitch. So that has got to be one of the longest, roughest first days on the job. Going to go straight to the ballpark, be hit by a pitch, and then call it a night afterwards. So I thought that was kind of funny for Curcio. But he had a hit. He was 1 for 1. He was on base both times, be it painfully the second time out. But that's another guy that you've got to imagine is going to be a key part of success if it does happen this year, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on the affiliated ball. People like Mike Hill, as you mentioned, he was a cleanup hitter, and he went 4 for 4 in Game 1, and then he had another great baseball game in Game 2. A lot of extra base hits, too. We saw 2 triples, which, by the way, would have equaled the amount that the Aces had all last season, which is another positive to be taken away from.
Well, the roster will be final and posted online this week. You can find that at melbourneaces.com.au. And then, of course, the opening series this weekend, a 4-game series against the Sydney Blue Sox, one of 2 in a row at home. Eric, what do you hope to see out of this series on both sides?
Well, Melbourne Ballpark is a bit interesting. It has a reputation of a pitcher's park. That really depends on the wind. When it howls in, you can't hit anything out of here, but when the wind is dead or even blowing out, it just turns into a launching pad. We've seen that in stats and also just in the practices that have gone on here at Melbourne Ballpark. So it's going to come down to pitching. It's a very easy thing to say. It's going to come down to pitching, but for a team that really struggled with that, the Aces were last in the ABL in ERA. That is the point where you really have to turn things around, and it's going to really rest on, it looks like, John Kennedy, Matt Larkins, who are going to be a bit of a 1-2 punch early on in this season to see if that success can get off on the right foot, because the Aces, they've never won 2 games in a row to start a season. They've had one 1-0 start. Getting off to a good start for this season could really go a long way. It's something that you can really say has never really happened before for this incarnation of the Aces.
7:35 is your first pitch time on Friday night. The Aces and the Sydney Blue Sox getting ready to kick off the 2015-2016 ABL season. You can come on out here to Melbourne Ballpark, and if you can't make it out to the stadium, Eric and I will have the call on the ABL.TV. It's looking to be a great series this weekend. We will see if Melbourne can put their last place season of last year behind them and improve this season, maybe even get over the 500 mark. So stay tuned. We'll have a new podcast coming up for you every week. You can find it right here on the Aces YouTube channel.
Go Aces.
All right.